Welcome to Permission to Shine, the space where high-achieving women like you come to peel back the layers, overcome what's been holding you back, and rise into your most authentic, powerful self. I'm your host, Sharice Bisram, inner power activation leader and intuitive healer, and a woman who knows what it means to look like she's thriving on the outside, also while feeling disconnected on the inside. This podcast is here to remind you, you didn't come here to just perform, you came here to lead with your soul. Your obstacles, they're invitations to expand. And your power, it was never outside of you. It's been waiting within you all along. Each week we'll dive into honest conversations, healing insight and soul-led strategies to help you stop self-sabotaging, reclaim your light and lead your life, your business and your relationships from deep-rooted truth. So if you're ready to rise with grace, softness and fire, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 100. I cannot believe that I have created something that has 100 episodes. I mean, I say I can't believe it. Obviously, I talk all the time to anyone that will listen. But most importantly, that my teachings through this podcast, the guests that I've had on, and the real pouring of my soul has resonated with you. So I just want to say a massive thank you for listening in, and any insights that you've taken from any part of my podcast or any part of the things and the work that I do, please do always tell me, because it's so beautiful and wonderful to hear. As you know, my life has been a consistent journeys of up and down, and those moments where it feels hard, it's so beautiful to hear that my story and my honesty is resonating with you. And equally, you know, the wins that I'm having that are reflecting in your life, it's just a real beautiful reciprocity, right, of energies. And that's really why I do everything I do in anyway, you know, to lead by example, and yeah, to create this beautiful flow that I feel like is so important and so needed right now in the world and just in life in general. And that really has been, I would say, what this journey of this year particularly has been for me. And if you haven't been listening up to date, I do invite you to go back to the couple of the last episodes, because I've been navigating some real difficult family things and old wounds that I've had to reheal, old lack stories and patterns that have resurfaced that were attached to my abandonment wound. And recently, this past weekend, I did a day retreat with the amazing Rosie Glow. I helped her, supported her on the day, and that really was the full circle to all of the healing. And that really invited me to talk about today. My very first episode was my life in a nutshell, and I really want to talk about how far I've come since then, you know, and like where this healing has taken place, what it's looked like, so that if you are on your healing journey right now, or you're in a space where you know that you need to be doing things differently, you can't be hustling, you can't be burning out, you can't be procrastinating or even putting yourself last anymore, this hopefully will give you not only a blueprint, but that honesty and also the reclamation of everything you are, you know. And I think sometimes that we feel like healing is this kind of like disarmoring, which it is, but it's also all of the parts that have been dormant in within you get to come back and resurrect within you too. So it's like a real beautiful cycle of breaking and putting together again over and over again, you know. And that's how the most beautiful pieces of art are made, right? Look at the mosaics and all the gorgeous things there. And it makes me think about the Japanese proverb of the gold, when they fill the broken pots with gold and it makes it more expensive. That's what I feel like my life has been, and I invite you to look at your own life and see that too. And within all of this kind of journeys that I've been through, which I'll go into in a bit more detail in a moment, it really has been an awakening for me that in my business, especially, I was focusing on working with women in a one-to-one basis when it came to my mentoring work. Because obviously I deliver workshops, I do talks, you know, I'm quite connected to lots of women in lots of spaces, and I've always been called to create some sort of a community or space for more women to be in my energy. And I think, I don't know if it was a fear or I just wanted to keep my energy potent. I think that's what it was. And it was a protection of my own energy, but equally ensuring that I had enough to give. And I think this period of time that I've just come through was a real deep inner winter, but within that, I stored up all of the energy, the resources, the understanding of myself. You know, I journeyed through that dark night of the soul again. Like I said, the abandonment wounds and all the things I experienced in my childhood came back to meet me. And I didn't run and I didn't try to climb over it. I went through it. And in that going through it again, I feel like I've expanded into this space of just knowing that so many women need access to this thing that I just know. You know what I mean? Like it's all of the lessons and the tests and the obstacles that I've had to conquer, that I've had to move through and move with. That in itself is a book, which I am writing, by the way. But I know that more women need access to it, and I want to give women more access to it. So, just before I go into the whole episode, I just wanted to let you know and invite you into the Inner Power Portal, which really is a space of all of the wisdom, the teachings, the practices that I use with my clients in a one-to-one space, but in a more open environment. So, there'll be two live calls a month. One will be movement and the body and soul alchemy work that goes down a treat because we start off by alchemizing the pain in our body into power, and then we go into like a beautiful, empowering routine that you can repeat over and over again to just make you feel amazing because you deserve that. And the second live call that I want to do in there is also what you need. Because I feel like there's not enough of that, right? There's not enough of specific requirements for you. So if you are in that community space, I'm going to just ask you, like, what do you want to work through? What is coming up for us? And there will be a collective golden thread because there always is. You know, the women that are drawn to me or to these things, there'll always be a golden thread of what we need to work through right now. And I'll be able to do a live session, answer questions in real time, and then within that space is everything I've got there, you know, all the meditations, all the activations. I'll specifically record ones and put them in there. I'll be adding journal prompts and full moon, new moon rituals. It'll just be a hub of everything I have to offer that you get access to for just £33 a month. And that for me feels so exciting because it just means that I get to help and support and guide more women in a space that feels really inclusive and promotes sisterhood. Because I'm just seeing on a really large scale how this wound, the sisterhood wound, which I've spoken about before, is so prominent at the moment. And there's lots of jealousy, there's lots of comparison, and I just want to dismantle that in any way that I can. And what better way than creating a safe environment for women to come together, and women that don't even know each other, that will get to know each other and just feel seen, heard, and understood by other women. And if I can create that, then that for me is just the beautiful energy of my life's work that needs to come together because in every space I've facilitated, whether that be a dancer, dance teacher, choreographer, I've always created safe spaces. So for me, this is so important and I'm really excited to share it with you. And I know it's been brewing for so long, but I felt what better way to share it with you than now in this 100th episode. So I just want to go back to the beginning of when I started this podcast and even thinking about my journey in my healing, right? I started the podcast in 2023, and my healing journey, my deep, deep, dark night of the soul healing journey began in 2020. So in 2023, it'd only been a few years, right? And in that, I still had lots of wisdom and lots of insight and awareness of myself. But as always, you deepen through going through. And since then, I'm laughing because I'm thinking about the amount of cycles that I've moved through within my healing, and some of them are so funny, you know, like, and I meet my clients now and they're going through something similar to what I went through then, and we laugh together because we're like, it's so interesting, isn't it? And I feel like, you know, as women dating, I mean, shall we talk about dating, right? I've had Andre on the dating expert, but I feel like, especially for women that are hyper independent and strong minded, strong willed, to let someone into our lives is such a big thing. And because we are allowing ourselves to open just a little bit more each time, the scar is there, right? And I remember in 2023, I was still caught up on a guy that I dated the year before, and I'm thinking, come on, sis, like let that go, right? And I just want to say that to you because I want you to know that it's normal, right? So if you're listening to this and laughing and thinking about an ex that you had that little time ago, the best thing you can do for yourself and for them is to let them go, you know? And what I will say on this, and if you listen to the episode with Andre, you'll know in a bit more detail, but the man is supposed to take the lead, right? And what happens is when we're strong feminine women, we start to take the lead because we're used to that space. We're used to owning that forward motion. And that for me is almost a little bit toxic manipulation. And I'm going to say it, and I'm saying it about myself because I was almost trying to make something happen there that didn't need to be there. So, the steps I've gone through within this time, it's about saying, okay, like I see what I was doing there, and I'm really glad that I came to that understanding and knowing that that needed to end, like as in my holding of that person. And that's why cord cutting is so important. And I have a free meditation on that as well. So you can find that on my website and I'll pop the link in below. And that just cuts your energy off of people because if someone wants to be in your life, whether, that's romantic or platonic, they will present themselves. And especially if it is the opposite sex, because like I said, men are hunters. Well, I didn't say that to you now, but that is part of it, right? And if they want to be in your life, they will make that clear, right? And that's the difference as well between a man and a boy, because a man knows what he wants, but equally, a man is not going to want to be in an environment with a masculine female. That's just, it won't be successful. And I'm just saying you this because this is one of the many lessons that I've learned in this time. And, even down to last year with dating, I went through the same process again where I did become slightly masculine and it triggered the hell out of the person and they ran, but they obviously wasn't they put on the facade and they gave it the man thing. And then when I started to feel the inklings of weakness, I then overcompensated to be in my masculine. And I'm saying this because this is so dominant in us as strong women, right? And that hustle mentality, which connects as well, by the way, to what I've been healing and working through, which is, well, it's a lot of things. Mainly when I started my healing journey in 2020, it was because I knew I was too masculine, right? And I say this because the patriarchy has forced us to be that way. We're not blaming anyone in particular. It's the societal expectation. And then people misconstrue feminism to be only women only, right? And it's not that. It's feminism literally means the social, political, and economical equality of the sexes, right? That means that everyone is seen on a fair game. Now, the difference is that when it comes to this environment with like working and to be seen and to be heard, women felt like in order to be successful, they needed to meet men where they were, not understanding the energetic roles that we have. When I talk about feminine and masculine energy in the body, the masculine is the doing energy, the feminine is the being energy, and we all have access to every single one of them. And we need both, right? We need that dynamic. But what happens is because we are driven by success to feel seen, heard, and validated as women or as people, we then push too far into our masculine to prove our worth, therefore, end up living in burnout, resentment, and all of that heavy, hard stuff because we are in an environment where the only way we feel validated is if we are successful. So I hope you're following me on this. This is where this idea that we have to hustle to be successful comes in. And that was so hardwired in my DNA through my survival, right? I felt like I didn't want to be a victim and I didn't want to be seen as a wounded person. So I just pushed with everything I had. And even in that space of, well, I say even in when it came into my healing space, I kind of went the opposite way. I went really feminine, and I felt like I was almost waiting for opportunities to find me to an extent. But there is no mistakes in the journey. And I want that to be clear, because if you're in a space right now where everything feels like it's pulled back and there's lots of space around you, that is an invitation that something needs to be looked at or healed, or it's just a space for rest. And I want to make that very clear, because I feel like, again, when all you've ever known is being busy, being productive, doing things that are going to support your future, having rest, you feel like you have to deserve it, but that's not true. Think about nature, you think about the animals actually go physically into hibernation, and then the trees, the leaves fall off to start again the cycle, don't they? You are no different to that. And actually, as a woman, we sync every 28 days with the cycles, right? Our moon cycles, nature's cycles. We have our own inner winter when we're going through our menstrual cycle. And that is so important that I acknowledge that for you, because these are the reclamation parts of our divine feminine self. And you might be thinking, oh gosh, what's she going on about? Whether you're spiritual or not, you consider yourself spiritual or not, you can't deny that there is a nature connection to yourself. Like, I mean, just when you go for a walk by the sea or in nature, you must feel that connection, that softness, that ease. Like, there is an actual study that water makes you feel more calmer in your body. We are designed this way, and especially as women, there is this beautiful connection. Everyone is connected to nature, but for women, our cycles, our period syncs up to it. So if you allow that to happen, magic unfolds. And this is really what happened for me, is that my spiritual gifts came online, should we say, when I began to heal. And most recently, when I went through this hard period, the abandonment wound again, like family illness and things like that came forward, I struggled, and I allowed myself to struggle as well. I allowed myself to hit that rock bottom again, because I knew that you have to fully crumble in order for the new to be rebuilt. And I think that really is connecting to, some of the blogs I've written and some of the podcasts I've done in the past, just reminding you of the fact that you can't keep pushing forward. And when I think about, if I do this from like a sort of imagery perspective, if you look at like the ruins of an old castle, and they're like half up, aren't they? Like now, if you went to visit a castle somewhere, there'd be all these like broken bits that are fragmented. So if they were to build on top of that fragmented pieces, it's more likely that it would crumble quicker, right? If there was to be like a hypothetical cannon war again, like there was in medieval times, and a cannon hit that brick, the new bit is going to fall off first, isn't it? It's the same with growth, with your ideas, with your business, with your life, with your relationships. You have to let the old completely burn to the ground, break to the ground, crumble to the ground, because in that space is where the fertile soil to the new grows, right? And that for me was this time. I was really evaluating, like, what is working for me, what is not, what do you want me to look at? And what was so clear in every level is that the masculine wound for me has been about proving, about security. And that really was the invitation that I had to look at, to really, I guess, the word is unlearn. And I think that I feel so much more safer in my body than I ever have in my whole life. And that I lean into that every single day. I do somatic practices and, breathing and all the good stuff and journaling every single day, because I need to do that in order to ground, to connect with myself, and to make sure I'm not living on autopilot. And that is the key piece there, because when we are unaware of how we are living, what we are saying to ourselves, we don't realize that the old story will naturally repeat itself. So for me, the check-in points of the somatic movement or the writing down in the journaling or even just having a conversation with myself as I mindfully have a cup of tea is all of these points to make sure that I am thinking in and being in the frequency of the life that I want to create and that I am, well, I'm already creating, like it's reminding myself that, I am abundant, I am worthy, I'm deserving. And these things are all affirmations, right? But more than that, my subconscious knows that too. And that's the art of the healing piece. And that's the art of the unlearning piece because when you start to really hone in on to your conscious thoughts and your subconscious thoughts, that's where you understand where the link's been your whole life. Like you might find yourself saying something that your mum used to say. So many of my friends that are parents now are like, oh my God, my mum used to say that, and I find myself saying it. And if it's relevant, then amazing. But if it's not, that's where we pull ourselves up on it. Like little things like saying to your children, you can't have that, it's too expensive. Instead of saying, right, when you're a good girl, or actually that's even wrong, don't say the good girl bit. That's slap on the hand for me there. When you've exceeded in your tasks for the week, maybe you're potty training and you're like, right, if you can have use a potty every single day this week, I will reward you with this. Um, I'm trying to think if rewarding is the right word, but it is because it's you're working towards something, right? And then you receive it as a byproduct of the effort, the hard work. I don't know what the right word is. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say here. What I'm saying is you're letting your child know that it's not because you don't have the money for it, it's that it has to be earned, right? And it's not saying that nice things need to be earned all the time, but there is an exchange there because what will happen is if you say it's just because of money, then you'll develop a lack mentality, right? And you can look at your own life and look back on those little conversations, by the way. That's so interesting if you think about when you used to go to the shop with your parents and if what they said to you as to why you couldn't have that toy or that thing. It could be that someone's birthday's coming up or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Christmas is next month. You can wait till Christmas. Santa might bring it. There's all different variations that you can do that for. But the patterning that you were told when you were a child is what you believe now as an adult. So this is why this is important. But if you are someone that sacrifices what you have in order to give to your child, then your child will grow up not understanding the value of things and expect it all of the time. Now that can be good because you're what you want, you have a high expectation for and you deserve it and you always get what you want. So in a way it could work well for your sense of self-worth. But also what it could do is then make you a brat. And I've got some friends, well, I had some friends in my life that were very much like that. And they weren't, the baseline was quite complicated and it was quite difficult to connect with them on a deeper level. So there's lots of pros and cons to each way you do it. I'm not telling you how to parent, but what I'm saying is the way in which you speak to children is the patterns that you carry out now in your everyday life. So it's not even about you being a parent, it's about you as an adult now listening into what were you told as a child. And that could be a really fun task for you to do. um Even now, like what's your dominant thoughts when it comes to money, love, and success, right? What are the dominant thoughts around that? And then what were you told as a child about it? Because if you were told that you would never amount to anything, that's a thing. Are you trying to prove yourself now in everything you do? Because that was me. No one believed that I was intelligent. No one believed I was going to be a dancer. So then I put all of my eggs in my basket of pushing really hard and hustling and forcing. I was doing 4 or 5 jobs a day to be able to financially prove my value, and my ability to the point where I was turning up to jobs exhausted. And I'd be annoyed that they'd pull me up on like, oh, you didn't give it your best today. And I'd be thinking, I was like, would you even know? I've had to do 5 jobs. And they're thinking, do you need to do 5 jobs? And I was so in autopilot. I didn't even stop to ask myself, do I need to do 5 jobs today? Is that realistic? But I was so afraid of it not being there that I yeah, work myself to the ground, especially like as a performer, work isn't promised all the time. So when it's there, you want to take it. But that again, that's scarcity mindset. There's always availability, there's always work, there's always opportunities, there's always something and someone to pay you for the thing that you do with your heart, if you believe it's so. But if you believe there's not, then that will also be so. And that's the beautiful thing about this deep understanding of yourself and who you are. And I think that this really is the part where, for me, divine feminine leadership is so important because if you are doing something because you think that people want that of you, or that that will be your worth shown, they're the wrong reasons. And I think if you feel like if you strip everything away and you still did the thing that you do now without recognition, without getting paid for it, would you be fulfilled? Because if the answer is yes, then that's you leading with your soul. Now, you might not have that same thing in the job you're doing, but what you do know is right now, this job that I'm doing is allowing me to financially support my family, take us on nice holidays, and do nice things, right? That could be a really beautiful why as well. This way of looking at things is where we bring in self compassion and empathy. And that really is the antidote for the hustle mentality. If we can give ourselves that compassion, that love and understanding, that is the grace and the healing space, right? So even when I'm thinking about these stages in my life and moving through them, like I said, like when I think about that first lot of relationships that I was still holding on to that person, when I finally let them go and gave myself that compassion in that space, I then created the energetic space to start again and welcome someone else in. And again, I repeat the process of like being like, okay, what do I need? Do I deserve more in this space? Am I holding out for someone that's not giving me everything I want? Maybe so. So then we move forward. And that very last time with the guy that I dated last year, I got over it so quickly because I understood what was happening throughout the process. So as he started to pull back, I thought, right, part of me could lean forward and into this now. And funny enough, he did dump me via text, which was the clean hard no for me. I'm like, yo, you're gonna dump me via text, and that's just it. But I think that that was the universe acting in my favor there because if it was compassionately done, I might have been a bit more lenient because again, in my feminine. But in that healing space, I allowed myself to feel what I needed to feel. And because I did it so openly and I was compassionate with myself, I actually got over it really, really soon. I don't even think it might have only been a few weeks and I was absolutely fine. And I think when I was seeing my friends, they're like, you're just okay. And I'm like, yeah, I am. There was nothing I was holding on to. Whereas, moving through this side of the year, and I think I said, if you listen to the previous episodes, I had the car accident, sorry, not the car accident, it's very dramatic. My car broke down. Um, which was the old cycle that I used to have, by the way, like when I was at uni in my real hustle force space. And again, there's always a mirror, right? This is a 9 year, if you're listening in 2025. So it's the end of the old cycles, right? And I fully know that with every part of me. And so that the car accident thing triggered me to react whether I would act in the old way or the new way. And I lent in with grace and I was compassionate to myself. But the byproduct of that without realizing is my subconscious started to rewire to the old mindset. And so I had to let that play out. And then what came up with that, obviously my aunt passed away and then I had to process the abandonment wounds from my dad's side of the family and all those things. And that was yeah, hard. But it was a real invitation for deep healing. And because I gave myself so much self-compassion and so much empathy and so much grace, I was moving through it really, really cautiously. And funny enough, I saw one of my best friends today and she said to me, you hadn't been okay for a long time. And I said to her, but I knew the way through it. And that's why I didn't need to lean on you so much because I knew my way through. And that's why, sometimes going inside through your winter is important. Instead of, you don't have to always overshare, you know. Everyone knew what was going on. I was very clear on it, and I did offload when I felt aligned to, but I just sat in it, and I was just nurturing myself the whole way through this space. And then as the glimmers started to come through, I could fully receive them, and in turn receive all of me, you know. Because if I imagine that that healing space for me was like a cave, and you know, there's little tiny pokes in the holes of the light coming through the gaps, and those for me were the moments where things start to feel lighter, or I might have just noticed a good thing happening, or you know, I might have spoken to someone and it gave me that reminder that yeah, we do always move through this, you know. And it's so easy when you're going through a hard time to relay it back to all the hard times you've had. And that's a real test in itself, whether you're going to use your old data and the old stories you've been telling yourself to move forward, or if you're going to say, I do remember when that happened, but that was in the past. So I'm going to keep moving forward. And that really was the invitation for me to just every day, a little step forward, little step forward, little step forward. And then the beautiful things start to happen. You know, I start to understand that I need to have conversations that are uncomfortable in order to move through. And then instead of it being dark, you know, and feeling long, I kind of jumped a few spaces forward into this lighter space because I was leaning into vulnerability and honesty and integrity. And so, and self-compassion, like I said, more than anything. And in that invitation of me healing, I know that having those uncomfortable conversations with family members and stuff, that healed a space in them too. So the tunnel then expands, you know, and the light pours in through the gaps as they keep moving forward. And so when it came to even the last few days of the weekend leading up to the day retreat that I assisted at, I just noticed that I was seeing more beauty in the world again, you know, and I was really, really leaning into that beautiful space and that invitation to deepen into that, look for that, you know. And I could feel like that last bit of the shadow. And if we imagine it like a cape of like the old stuff, the heavy stuff, and it's nowhere near as heavy as it used to be, but it's still carrying some weight. The day of that day retreat, when we went back and we rewrote the stories and we healed that beginning part of our birth, you know, making sure that instead of coming into the world in a way that we did with like pain and difficulty and hardship, we came in through love and abundance and joy. And this is something that you can all do for yourself, you know. I think it's really important that at this point, like I said, you stop and look at what is the story you've been telling yourself about yourself your whole life. Because if it's that, you know, my family were dysfunctional and therefore that's why I have a daddy issue, you know, you could carry that with you forever. And the universe will keep cut and pasting examples of how that looks in your life. Or you can choose to say, I did come from a dysfunctional family. And because of that, I saw it as an invitation to do things differently. And so now I love fully because I see love and feel love from my friends, my family. If you've got a great partner, from your partner too, you know? And it's looking for those examples because then the universe will cut and paste more of that. And I'm telling you this from lived experience because when I came to the end of that retreat, I was having beautiful downloads and expansion of my spiritual gifts, which have been absolutely incredible, and connecting with the goddess Isis and all of these things. And I'll do a separate episode all about that another time because I think for those of you that aren't inclined to spirituality, you're going to be thinking, what the hell are you going on about? But it was this opening, and I felt like that heavy cape that I'd been carrying and the end of the cave all was one thing, just one step forward, and the cape dropped, the weight dropped, and I got to look out over this beautiful vast ocean at this sunrise, and I could feel the sunlight hit my face and the breeze in my hair, and this moment of real deep peace of knowing that I've arrived to the next space. And that is the glory of being in the journey, right? Is that, you know, I'm in this beautiful space now. I'm looking over at the ledge, looking behind me and seeing where I've come from again, looking out and seeing all the beautiful things that are available to me now. And then we start to climb again because that's how life works. There's always going to be a process of moving forward. And especially for me, in this understanding of this life that I've created is that I go first to then show you the way into your light too. Because that's really what divine leadership is, is when you are leading by example. Anyone could say they're a leader, right? Anyone could just put a badge on and say, hey, I'm a leader today. You must have seen it. I worked in retail when I was about, between the ages of 15 to 21. So, whilst I was that was one of my many jobs, when I was at uni. And there was people that were team leaders that just shouldn't have been, they were just probably did double time, and then they gave them that role, and they were never meant to be that. I'm sure you've had managers in your time that you think, bloody hell, you don't have a clue what you're doing. And that's a bit like the way it is, and especially if you're in the business space at the moment, and it's not corporate, it's like online space. There's a lot of people saying a lot of things, but if you use your discernment and your integrity, you will find the people that are true, because you are a vibrational match to what you put out into the universe. That's the epitome of it, right? That's the deep rooted core of what divine feminine integrity, intention, intuition really is, and that's the part of leadership that I feel like I am leading by. I'm listening to my intuition. I'm leading with compassion and openness and vulnerability, and I'm taking you along with me. And that's why I decided to curate this space, the Inner Power Portal, for that reason, because I'm living it in real time, and it would feel so out of alignment for me to not have been through what I have and say it and teach it. There's no way that even 3 years ago I could have taught you all of these things, because I was still not aware of them, right? But this is the beauty of this. And I know that this is my purpose because of human design, astrology, and all the stuff as well. But because of the way it makes me feel, and helping even just one person in my lifetime would have been enough, right? But the fact that I get to help so many different women in this journey, it really is a dream come true. And I could allow myself to get really upset and fulfilled with that, because it's just really truthfully everything I've came here to be and more. And so my invitation to you now is, if you are searching for something within yourself that you can't see, but something's missing, this is your invitation into my space. Like, you don't have to do it on your own. And I know that the way you've been doing it might have got you success, it might have got you the relationship, but I want you to ask yourself, how happy truly am I? And am I worthy of more? Because that's really the answer, that's the abundance piece. It's like, okay, I am happy, but I'm worthy and deserving of so much more than this. Or it might even be that you don't know what happiness looks like right now. And that's okay too, because my space will cover all of this for you. There's so many different variations of this. And this is the importance as well of having collective females together. Like I said, on that day retreat, everyone's sharing their experiences. It was so interesting how there was a golden thread through each of us. And we were like, oh my gosh, you'll never know that, right? You'd never know that if you just had shallow conversations with people, which it isn't our fault, right? We're in a rush, we might not feel open and safe to do so. And by the way, you're as open to share as much as you want, like that you've got full permission to lean in as much as you would like. You don't have to share a life story of anyone. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm saying is, it's a space where you can say, gosh, it feels a bit heavy today, and you will have people to sit with you and hold that, you know? And that's really what I want in this. Really is a revelation, and a revolution, because I think that for me, I can't preach about divine feminine energy and leadership and movement without holding the space for more women. And that's me living in integrity and alignment with what I came here to be. So I think really and truly, this has been my journey from hustle into the her that I am now, like this version of me that I'm so proud of. And I think, I don't know how many of you can say that for yourselves, and I really hope you can. But if you can't yet, that's so possible, But you really do have to tune into what you want and need in order to find that, because it's not something that you can bypass your way to or skip to. It doesn't even come through you having to prove yourself. You just get to look at yourself in the mirror and say, well done. You know, you made it out of really hard times and you are still here. And not only are you still here, you're shining and people are benefiting from your light. And every single one of you, I can guarantee you, when you are happy, you inspire so many people, right? And even when you're sad, you're inspiring people, because people are probably looking at you thinking, wow, like she's been through so much and she's still here, or she's still doing that. She's still, you know, showing up, whatever it is. Like, give yourself that permission to sink into that today. You know, I want you to feel really, really proud of yourself. And if no one's told you today, I'm proud of you. Put your hand on your heart right now if you're listening. Obviously, if you're driving, just put one hand on your heart and just take a deep breath in. Close your eyes if you can and just listen to that. I am proud of you. Now you'll start to receive that in your heart. I know the road feels difficult sometimes, and I know that you feel at war inside of yourself, but I'm telling you now that peace is available to you, because never in a million years did I ever imagine that, one, I would be calling myself an intuitive healer as well as an inner power activation leader. The power part, yeah, I get it. The intuitive healer part, gosh, it seems like that old version of me is like, have a day off, love, no way. But here I am, you know, in all of me, speaking to you, saying that it doesn't have to be the way it's been. It gets to be different. And the tough, masculine, forceful 90s era Charisse that was like, I'm a bad bitch and I'm a hustler. But my favourite song was Diva by Beyonce, because it was Diva is a female version of a hustler. When it comes on now, I sing along and I laugh, because I'm like, that ain't me. Ain't me, girl. But we can appreciate every version of ourselves, and we don't eradicate them. We say thank you for coming with me on this journey, and it gets to be easy now. And if you really want to feel that ease, that reconnection, that activation within yourself, that is what this space is. And just to kind of round off, I saw one of my friends, Stacey. She's Stacey Beecham, psychic mentor on Instagram, if you want to follow her. She said to me, you can't borrow confidence. And I never want my clients to think that they're borrowing my confidence in order to invest in her business mentoring, basically. And that word just really sat with me. And we both kind of went into this about how, for me, I don't, you're not borrowing my confidence at all, because I'm activating it within yourself. And that's why my clients get long-term results, because I'm showing them a part of themselves. And it's almost like how you light a candle with another candle. That's how I envision that, is that I'm just passing on the flame for you to be lit. And then you pass on your flame. And then we look around and there's a whole world full of lit candles. And you're one of them. So give yourself the permission to shine. Thank you for joining me for 100 episodes. I will be back with more. And I'm really excited to, bring this next chapter through. So the invitation is there. The Inner Power Portal is for you, my love. And it's £33 a month. I'd love to have you in there. Thank you for listening with me. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for supporting my journey in any way it is, even if it's just following me on social media or following the podcast. It just means the absolute world. So thank you, truly, from the bottom of my heart.
If this episode resonated with you, please do like, share, and send to someone you know that would benefit. If what I've said in this episode resonates with you, please don't hesitate to drop me a message so we can begin your journey of self-empowerment through self-discovery. My process is simple. Understand what happened to you so you can accept it. From there, you can release what no longer serves you, and then we begin to rebuild your self-worth, your self-esteem, and your self-trust to ultimately ensure that you become the version of yourself that you were destined to be. Time to give yourself the permission to shine.